TV shows and movies usually depict abductors driving white or black vans. I didn't realize this until I decided to buy a white one myself, a 1994 Dodge Ram cargo van to haul some of the gear I needed for work. While driving it, I've been pulled over by cops and searched 3 times for no reason, but that's another story. The point is that some people see vans as just suspicious. One day while returning home, a woman pushing a stroller stared at me for a long time while I drove along my home street. We have speed bumps and I had a lot of expensive, delicate gear in the van, so I was driving pretty slow. She stared at me, wide-eyed, the entire time, so I smiled at her, like a friendly neighbor does. She was staring so intently she almost walked the stroller right off the edge of the curb. I thought it was pretty funny and almost forgot about it. A week later, our HOA email thread heats up when a resident sends out a notice that his wife and toddler were being stalked by a man in a white van. Fearing a pitchfork and torch mob mistaking me for the creeper, I replied to all saying that I lived in the neighborhood and also drive a white van. I even provided my license plate number and home address. A big mistake, I know. Jokingly, I also added that I witnessed a suspicious person in the neighborhood, a woman with a stroller who was staring at me so long and hard that it made me uncomfortable. I provided the date and time of the incident to see if their alleged stalker was actually me. And it was. And the dude got really triggered. He started sending me email after email, CCing everyone on the list, telling me that he can read between the lines of what I was saying. His accusations became just more and more ludicrous by the day and even turned into personal attacks. Several neighbors on the email list replied that he was behaving badly, in fact. The emails did eventually stop, but things got even weirder. On several occasions while out walking my dog, a 10-ish-year-old girl would come out of her house, run over to me awkwardly, and chat me up about my dog and give me strangely intimate details of her life. I wondered why this child was talking to strangers, but thought that maybe she just knew me from the neighborhood, so I politely played along. But then, one day, the girl shows up at my house. She said that she was angry because her dad wouldn't let her have a dog like mine, so she wanted to visit my dog for a while. Obviously, I told her that I needed to talk to her parents before I could ever let her visit my home like this. She said okay and left, and after that, I never saw her anymore. I have 2 daughters of my own, and one of their friends told me that the girl who was chatting me up is the daughter of the triggered dude from the HOA email list. Apparently, he had been sending her out to talk to me and take pictures. My daughter's friend was friends with this bait girl. The poor girl's dad was making his own daughter uncomfortable, which is why she confided in her friend. The dad was sending his daughter out to chat to me so that he could accuse me of, well, I don't even know what. One detail that I did forget to mention though was that I have dash cams in all of my vehicles and CCTV monitoring my front door. So the initial incident with the wife, as well as the girl coming to my door, were both recorded. I emailed the triggered dude and kindly offered him copies of the videos of each incident. I also told him that I was concerned that his daughter was behaving inappropriately towards strangers. Apparently, this scuttled his plan, as I have never heard from him again after that. I grew up in a village near Munich in southern Germany. It was maybe the safest and most peaceful place on earth, with a few young families fleeing the stupid rents in the city and a few elderly couples. Close to my parents' house, there is a little nature conservation area, maybe about 2 to 3 kilometers squared in size, with a forest and a few little lakes. Entrance isn't forbidden, but there's no path leading deeper into the area, and it can be quite overgrown and wet, so normally nobody would go deeper inside. However, I've always had an interest in wild and natural places like that, and when I was allowed to play outside alone, I soon started exploring it and it became my favourite playground. One day, if I remember correctly, I was 9, I found a small clearing deep inside the forest, covered by a flower meadow. In late summer, it honestly just looked like paradise itself. Over the next years, I came there whenever I wanted to be alone and when I needed time for reading and dreaming and drawing, and when I grew older, also sunbathing and other stuff. During all this time, I never told anyone about it, and I never saw a single sign of any other person there. The meadow was my little secret, and I felt safe at home there. Years later, I went there to do some reading and sunbathing, and since I never saw anyone there, I mostly stayed topless while doing so. I must have fallen asleep at some point, and when I woke up, I saw an old, maybe 50-year-old man sitting directly beside me. He was maybe 1.8 meters in height, dressed in light outdoor clothing, and had a camera hanging around his neck. I got the shock of my life and yelled and tried to somehow cover myself up, but all my clothes were out of reach, so all I could do was press myself to the ground. He was just sitting there, looking at me, and it told me how beautiful I was and how glad he was to see me again. I asked him to turn around to allow me to get my clothes, but no, you don't really need to be ashamed, and I just want to chat a bit. The man told me about his life and asked casual questions: where I live, what my name was, how was school going, what about boys and stuff like that. At first, my answers were pretty short, hoping that he would just leave me alone, but he clearly had no intention to do so. After a few minutes, he even asked if I would allow him to shoot some more pictures of me, because I looked like a nympha, and he would like to preserve me forever. I, of course, refused. But now, something changed in his behavior. His whole appearance became harder, and he said with a creepy cold voice, and I'll never forget this sentence:
"You know, you really are stupid for a naked little girl, all alone in the forest."
At this point, I became scared as hell, jumped up and ran into the forest, leaving all my stuff behind. He didn't try to follow me, but was just sitting there and laughed. I came back after lurking around for about 2 hours to get my stuff, and he was gone and left most things behind, except for my t-shirt and bikini top. I grabbed all my stuff, tried to cover myself with my skirt, and ran home as fast as I could. I never did tell my parents, but after that, I never visited that meadow again. So, I have a phobia that goes by a few names: scopophobia or ophthalmophobia, the fear of being watched. What this means is that I have this weird compulsion. Whenever I see a doorway, a window, or virtually any surface that I believe someone could hide behind, I imagine a face peering out at me, staring. I imagine what I would do, what could I do, and you'll soon find out why I have this phobia. So, on to the story. I'll try my best to remember all the details, but my mind has repressed a lot of it. Around June of 2016, my mother and I were living in a small apartment. There was no basement or attic, obviously, but there was one tiny crawl space in the closet floor of my bedroom. I never looked in it. I suppose that some people would be overwhelmed with curiosity, but my mind had already imagined all the worst scenarios. And so, I decided to leave whatever dead bodies and ghosts were down there for whoever rented after us. It was a nice apartment, small but perfect for the two of us. We lived there for a few peaceful months until the noises started. It was nothing extreme, just the odd bump in the night, and particularly scratching. My mum just brushed it off as rats in the walls or something. and as long as they stayed in there, I saw no reason to get rid of them. A week or two later, I had already grown used to the noises. In fact, it almost became comforting in a way. After all, I never really liked silence. That is, until I awoke one night to a different noise. A rolling sound, eerily similar to the sound my closet made when I opened it. I peeked my eyes open and looked over, but I couldn't make anything out in the dark. I thought maybe that I saw something move, but I was well aware of how the mind plays tricks on you in the dark. There was only one way to find out though, so I turned on my lamp. When I turned on the light, I expected to just see a closet full of coats, but what I saw was much, much worse. It was an eye, and not just an eye, but the entire half of someone's face, barely visible in the tiny crack he had opened. He didn't even react to being caught. No smile, no fear, just watching. My heart has never beat faster than that night, and I wished I screamed, or maced him, or anything, but I just stared back, frozen in time until I couldn't hold it in anymore. I began sobbing, loudly, and I think I tried to say something along the lines of, "What do you want?" but it was garbled by my crying. He opened the door more and I could see his entire body, which I don't care to describe as I've spent 2 long years trying to forget that face. He said, "Shh," and I lost my breath at that. Hearing him made it real. I couldn't pretend that this was some fucked up hallucination anymore. And at this, I sat up and pressed my back against the wall. "It's okay." He said it so cheerfully. It gives me chills just remembering it, in fact. And this is when I finally had the courage to just run out of the room. This creep knew my name too. My fucking name. My mum, still half asleep while she called the police, thought that I had imagined it. Of course, by the time that the police had got there, he was long gone. All that was left of him was that damn Crawlspace. I never did look inside, but writing this now, I kinda wish I did. Having some sort of proof of this would, I don't know, maybe comfort me. Because at least you all would know that I'm not crazy. Apparently, he had been living in there. For how long? I don't know, but the officers who first arrived on the scene said that there were tally marks inside the crawl space. And I really did not want to know how many. I didn't want to know whether he was marking days or weeks. I just wanted to leave that fucking apartment. And eventually, we did. The police never did find him. Well, not for certain. They thought they found a homeless man who matched his description, but he was apparently unresponsive. I've always thought that they didn't take it all that seriously. They just thought that he was a squatter, even after I told them that he knew my name. They thought that given how long he'd been seemingly squatting, he had probably just heard my name through the floorboards or something. Since that night, he has been the face that I always see when there's an open door or closet. It's grown more distorted as time has gone on, but I can always make out a part of his pursed lips, as if he's still shushing me, even now. It's gotten easier with time, but I don't think that it'll ever leave me completely. Anyways, I guess that we never really actually had rats.